Hey, what's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Perfect Timing Multisport. Again, where we talk about how folks are getting into athletics, especially into triathlon, talking about those really personal stories, and really just, again, talking about those really genuine and authentic stories. So today, I have Michanda here with me. Great friend of mine, and actually the person and brains behind the Juneteenth Ride. So if you were here, a part of it in DC, you know all about that. If you weren't here, you weren't a part of it, you're like, what the hell is he talking about? Glad you're here, glad you're listening in. If you're listening to the podcast at a later date. So before we get into it, just introduce yourself and talk about, just let us know who you are, right?
Well, thank you, Mike, for having me. I'm so grateful to be here. Hi, everybody. I'm Michanda, known as Michanda Shines on Instagram and social media. And I am a girl who just loves to shine. I'm a model, I'm a triathlete, I'm a lover of God. And honestly, I just love to do things that make me feel good and make me see the best in others and get them to shine brightly. So that's kind of who I am in a nutshell.
All right, cool. So you mentioned that you love tri. So how'd you get into the sport?
Ooh.
And how and when? That's important.
How and when.
Yeah.
So my first taste of triathlons was in 2010.
Okay.
A co-worker of mine, Leslie Tukes, back in the day in Atlanta, Georgia, invited me to be a part of a relay.
One second, is that where you're from?
I'm from Augusta, Georgia, but I was living in Atlanta.
Okay, cool.
And so she was like, would you like to be a part of my relay team for my birthday, 40th birthday? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, sure. Yeah. Now listen, I didn't know what that was. Right. I just knew I could swim. And she saw me swimming in the pool at the gym. And I went and I said, this is open water. I had never done open water swimming before. And I survived, right? Yeah. And then I saw people riding bikes. I said, this is another part. Yeah. So then they rode bikes, and then they came back and ran. And I said, I can ride a bike. Right. I can run. I want to do a triathlon. Okay. I didn't do my first triathlon until 2014, so I moved to DC. Again, still didn't really know what was happening. Started going to the YMCA in downtown on 17th Street. Here in DC.
Okay. Yeah.
In DC on 17th Street, and found out that they had a pool and saw a flyer for a triathlon team. So guess what I did? I signed up.
What's the name of that tri team?
It used to be Y-Tri, and now it's capital Y.
Capital Y. Okay.
Tri-DC. So, and it was just an amazing opportunity. I didn't know anything about having to purchase a road bike. I just thought you could ride a hybrid. Like, I was so naive. I just didn't know. Fast forward to my first triathlon, which was in Philadelphia, which we should call Philadelphia because those hills are not for the novice at heart. And they were like Strawberry Hill, Strawberry Mansion Hill, I can see. Anyway, but it was just a great opportunity. And that's when I really was like, this is a cool sport. It was so many cool people that I met that day. And I think that's where we kind of...
I was going to say, I know one person that was really cool that you met. So, funny story. I did this. This was my first time and only time doing that Tri-Rock, which they called it, Philly Tri-Rock up in Philly. And we'll get into this, but if you can't imagine, triathlon is not really a diverse space, right? So I'm out here. I actually met. I didn't meet Max Fennell's mother that day, but I met her a year prior. So it's a few of us, if you didn't know what I was talking about. So a few people of color, not only black folks. And I just remember her and her energy. And when I came to DC in 2017 and met Michanda in 2018, I'm like, I know you from somewhere. And this is back in 2014. So it's crazy how, the triathlon community just sticks together, especially PLC and especially black folks that are in the sport. But we're going to get right back into Philly Tri-Rock in a second, because I definitely want to hear about your experience. But when you think about that first triathlon and that first relay in particular, what leg did you do? I'm assuming you did swim, but just confirm. Yeah, which leg did you do?
I totally did the swim leg.
Okay. So at what point did you start swimming? Because a lot of, again, black folks, we are known not to swim. That's definitely a barrier to entry. So how'd you get into swimming?
So swimming, my mother put us in swimming when we were young, and I was on the swim team and this is in Augusta, Georgia.
Right.
I was on the Augusta-Richmond County swim team. And then later went in to swim for my high school, which was Glen Hills High School. My senior year, which was the first year they had a swim team. But I stopped swimming just because black girl hair problems, right? And trying to do hair. But swimming is my first love. It's my first sport that I was good at, but I wasn't like an elite athlete with swimming, but I could hold my own. Freestyle and breaststroke were my top strokes. I did an IM a few times, but butterfly just was.
What's an IM?
So an IM is what is it? Intermediate medley?
Yeah.
I can't even remember.
All good.
Individual medley, where you do a back breast fly free. So backstroke, breaststroke, fly, and then freestyle.
And how long do you have to do that?
I mean, now I'm doing nothing. But back then, when I was young, it was the 100. That's probably all I could stand was 100.
Okay.
100 meters.
All right. So actually, it's funny when you talk about IM. I know what it is now, but when I first started doing IMs, it was with DC Tri Club. James, he actually coaches the Master Swim Club, Master Swim Team. It's a great program, and that's what got me into DC Tri Club. And he would have these workouts, and he would put IM 4 times 100, and I'm like, cool, that's my Ironman pace. Like, I'm like, cool, whatever, I'm here for it.
Wow.
So again, going back to that first try, and you said why try in the moment. Like, what was that experience like for you? How long was the program? I know we have a lot of different programs here in the district. How long was it for you? Was that the goal race for you all?
It was. So we have a team race each year. And that particular one was in Philadelphia. And we start the season in February. And so the season goes from February until about June, depending on which team race the team does. So I guess a couple of months, math is not my subject, but I would say about 4 months, or a 16 to 18 week program that's strictly volunteer based. It's volunteer ran organization that literally runs itself. It's not a real, it's not a corporate, it's not a nonprofit. It is just a community-ran organization where we are the community that run the organization.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you go to Philly Tri-Ride, that being your first race experience in the triathlon space. You said it's Philadelphia or Hill Rock. Again, as we get looped back there, tell me a little bit about that experience. Like, what you love about it, what you hate about it, and why'd you keep coming back to this sport?
I think what I loved about doing my first triathlon was that it was something that I had never done. And I set a goal, and amidst the challenges that I went through to obtain the goal, I saw it as an overcoming experience. And the feeling that I received when I crossed the finish line was such a euphoric experience that I said I wanted more. And so I started off with an Olympic. So I didn't know what a sprint was. I mean, I knew what a sprint was, but my first triathlon ever was an Olympic. And an Olympic triathlon was a little bit, it's like almost a mile swim. It's a 25-mile bike, and then it's a 6.2-mile run. So in retrospect, I should have started with the sprint, but go big or go home, right? The energy of the camaraderie out there on the course is unmatched. I've done marathons, I've done multiple races, but it's something about the encouragement you're getting from other athletes that I thought was like, man, this is amazing. The energy in Philly was, I have not participated in a race that can match the Philly experience.
I agree. I love Philly. If you don't know, I'm from Philly. Not
to hype them up too much, but it was a great race. It was a great race. And then once you do a try, it's something very addictive. It's a good habit. You don't realize it because it's an expensive habit. but it is a good habit. And the way you feel, the way your body feels, it's like, man, my endurance is off the charts. And so for me, I did it because I loved it. It wasn't because I was trying to podium. It wasn't because I was trying to, age group, get status with USAT. I just wanted to do this because I felt good. It was a hobby. Yeah. So I treated it as a hobby. Okay. And Philly was just a great experience. I did Philly 2 years in a row and then branched out into, it was VMTS, but now it's kinetic racing. So I did a lot of kinetic races after that.
Cool. So you sure I didn't like share the notes because she's flowing like right into the next topic. But so you mentioned a few things in this last conversation, right? You mentioned one, as you crossed that finish line, it was a feeling that you couldn't experience, you didn't experience anywhere else. Yeah. And then you went right into your experience with kinetic. So I know she's not only an athlete, but you are an announcer.
What?
So, yeah. That's what I heard. Shoot, I personally have heard that actually crossing the finish line as I'm coming down. I forgot which race it was. I was coming down the hill. I was like, I'm over it. It's hot. It's late in the season. And I just see Michanda, her big old smile, her big old energy. And I'm just like, I'm here for it. So tell me how you got into announcing. Yeah.
That's a good question. So announcing, how did I get into it? Going back to Philly Tri-Ride, my first experience. And there was this young lady who had a little skirt made out of swim caps.
Swim caps, yep, I remember her.
And she was getting everybody started. I was like, I like this person. Come on, give me credit before I get in and jump in the Schuylkill River and drink all this nasty Philly water. And get me excited.
Hold on, you just said crump, so I know you're from Georgia.
That's where I get crump. Damn. Alright. But it was just, she was getting everybody excited, making people feel comfortable. Yeah. And I said, wow, I would love to do that. Again, 2014. Fast forward to 2017.
Okay.
I had a weird, wild idea to do a half Ironman.
Which one was it?
Long course. Excuse me. It was a long course. So I did Patriots long course, which is the equivalent to an Ironman's distance half Ironman.
Yeah. Real quick, I know I'm stopping the flow of this conversation, but you mentioned she mentioned the sprint distance, the Olympic distance, the half Ironman or long course, and then the full Ironman, which is ultra. Just for folks that don't understand, like, what the hell is she talking about? That's the breakdown. All right, so you had this crazy idea to sign up for this long course, which is 70.3 at Patriots. Sorry.
And at Patriots, it's a little bit longer. It's like 71 or 72 miles because of the way they do their design. Anyway, I do the race, and I'm on the bike. One of the last people to come in. No problem. I showed up.
No problem at all.
I'm on the run. The only reason why I was able to stay out of the run course was because I had my own camelback. Again, I'm just trying to finish. My goal is to finish. I come back to the finish line and Kenny is bringing me in. And we get back to the hotel, we are celebrating, we're sitting at the pool, we're chilling in the jacuzzi. And I'll never forget, Harold was like, hey, the announcer said he's looking to diversify his announcer pool. I said, really? That's me. So I found out later that night because I couldn't sleep. My adrenaline was through the roof. I could not sleep. So I was like, well, let me just see where I placed. Now, clearly I finished like last, but I just wanted to see where I placed.
Oh, good.
Guess what?
What happened?
I finished third.
All right.
So I had to go back and get me a little plaque and a little medal. I said, yes. So I go back and have an opportunity because the next day they had the sprint race, which is the shorter distance. And I got an opportunity to get my medal, and I was able to talk to Kenny. And he said, I don't have any other opportunities this year for you, but I am looking to diversify my pool. Send me an email on Monday and I will let you know.
Right.
Cool. I sent him an email on Monday. He responds immediately. He's like, hey, by chance, are you available to come do Savage Man? I didn't know what Savage Man was. Yeah. I was like, let me think. At this time, I didn't really have a good car. Yeah. So I was like, I have to get a car. I have to rent a car. Then he was like, you can stay with us. And I'm like,
Did you know him?
No, I didn't know him. So now I'm staying with, Kenny, who's a white guy, and then another house full. It was a house full of white people, so it only been me. And it was so funny because the running joke was, you was driving up here not knowing what was going to happen to you. I said,
Listen,
you're right. So I made a decision. I was like, you know what? I'm going to take the risk.
Yeah.
I went up there, and Savage Man is one of the hardest half Ironmans across the country.
It is.
And I happened to be at the wall, which is if you can make it up the wall without falling and you complete the race, you get a brick in the wall.
All right.
So I happened to say, he was like, I'm not going to give you a microphone, but then he ended up giving me a microphone and was like, you call their names up, I'll be down here on the bottom of the hill and we'll tag team. I'm nervous because I said, he just said he wasn't going to give me a microphone. He gives me the microphone. He just said, come shadow me.
Yeah.
And I said something. And I said it because somebody else said it. So I was like, well, I'm going to repeat it because, again, I've never done this before. And I said to an athlete, I was like, way to go. You have mowed that wall. And he stopped and turned around. And he says, did you just say mow the wall? On the microphone.
Yeah.
And that to him resonated.
Hey.
And as a result, he invited me to come back to shadow him for Army 10 miler as well as Marine Corps Marathon. And then following that I was able to come into on his team and have some races where I would shadow him. And now, just fast forwarding because there's a lot of history, I am the finish line announcer for the Army 10 miler.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Well, I was this past year. Every year is a new year, so we just speaking it into existence. We're coming back.
Ooh.
But yeah, so it's a great opportunity, and it all started because I took the risk.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so important is that sometimes we're scared to take the first step.
Yeah.
I stepped outside of my comfort zone to do the half marathon, or half Ironman, long course, excuse me. Then I stepped out of my comfort zone to go and make the ask. I sent him the email.
Yeah.
I drove up to Deep Creek, Maryland in the brinks of the night. Scared as I don't know what.
And that's like a 3-hour drive from DC.
From DC.
So it ain't no quick ride.
It's not at all. And staying with people who I did not know.
Yeah.
And I'm still the only person of color there.
Yeah.
And in this part of Maryland,
yeah, that's a lot of risk.
It was a lot of risk.
Yeah.
But it's paying off.
Yeah, it is. So thinking about announcing, I know that has to be a super easy job. You just have to get there and get the microphone, right? And just say, hey, congratulations, you're like doing good. That has to be like one of the easiest jobs, I'm sure.
Maybe for Mike Riley, because he got a team who's setting up everything. Mike Riley, that's a shout out to you, player. We gonna work together soon. I'm just calling it. But no, it's not easy because I work with a smaller company who does a lot of races in the Maryland, Virginia, the mid-Atlantic region. And so we set up everything from setting up sound to, setting up the speakers, getting cords. We do all that.
All right. And so do you have to make a playlist or something? Or
we do.
Right.
So sometimes there's a difference. Some announcers come and just announce.
Yeah.
But because Kenny is a DJ, he's teaching us how to select music and set the mood for the triathlon. Right. So I have a playlist. I make a playlist. And I also have to announce and go with the pace and the feel of the flow. At the beginning of the race, it's a different pace than at the end of the race. So we have to be able to gauge that for the crowd. Okay,
so thinking about going back to your time and your space as an athlete, what does the role as an announcer play as you're on the course? How important is that person? And also, how important is the music? And what's your favorite song to hear as you're training? That was a lot. You may not be able to answer all that, but if you can remember, I would love to hear.
I'll try.
Yeah.
So I think the role of the announcer to me is twofold. It's one, to provide information. They're the person who's going to know what's happening. They're in contact with the race director. They're the person that is going to give you everything that you need to know so that you can be at ease. Second thing, the announcer is to encourage you. Yeah. I feel like I'm a natural encourager, and so it is my desire to spread love to those who are, like, just being able to, as one of my friends say, hurl blessings to people as they're crossing the finish line. Because when I open my mouth, I've already prayed for a lot of the people, so I'm just there to encourage them. And to me, Like when I hear my name called, I feel special.
Yeah.
And so I want everyone who I get to call out their name to feel special and to feel like, man, I have accomplished this greatest goal. And let me just be clear, elite athletes probably don't care if their names get called because they're going after a goal. But it's the back of the crowd, the party in the back, the people who are last, to me, who just really need that extra bump of encouragement because they're the ones who are doing it for the first time. They're the ones who are taking this big risk. And they just need to know that someone cares about them and to make them feel special. Because again, we want this sport to continue and to perpetuate. And so that's how we get them to come back.
All right, cool. And the favorite music, like what favorite music do you like to hear as you're training? And what favorite music do you like to play when you're out announcing?
Well, I'm from Georgia, so I like a good trap beat, so that's gonna make me twerk. But no, I love music with strong beats. I play the clarinet. I was in the band all my life, so for me, I have such a huge range of music that I like to hear. A lot of the music that I play for athletic purposes and when I'm on the job is up-tempo, happy, encouraging. I like to play rap. I think it's appropriate in certain instances. Whatever's top 40, those are the things that you play kind of at a race. Now, on my personal playlist, you will get anybody from Waka Flocka to, who is the guy? Lecrae. So it's a range.
Okay. I like it. I'm definitely here for that. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. Sheesh. So as thinking about again going back to being an athlete, have you had to overcome any challenges through your journey as an athlete?
No, Mike, I ain't overcome nothing. Yes, athletes, that's what we do. We are overcomers. Every time we step out, whether it's for practice, whether it's for training, we have overcome the mentality of not wanting to do what we wanted to do. So yes, I have overcome so much in this industry, especially as a triathlete. And I would say more recently from my time of moving here to DC, simply because that's when I started triathlons. And moving here, I moved here to start a business that it did not work out. But I had to get a job. But I knew I had a dream of modeling and doing some other things. So I took a job working overnight at a hotel, making $14 and probably 25 cents at the time. So think about it. You come from a corporate job, you start a business thinking, oh, it's going to take off, because that's how my mindset is. And then you have to figure out life to take a job for making $14. And then to do triathlons, which they are expensive, and I had no idea. Again, I don't even know what the word, I was just very naive. I didn't know that triathlons were expensive. Come to find out, the average income for a triathlete is 6 figures. And I'm making $14.25. So guess what I had to learn how to do? Try on a budget.
Listen, so how'd you do that? Not only how'd you manage your money, how'd you manage your time? You're working overnight, you're training for these races. Like, it sounds like a lot.
It was a lot. And I look back on that experience and say, wow, you did all that. But it was my mentality and I wanted to do it. I would come and I didn't have a car at the time, so I would ride the train from Alexandria, Virginia to DC, downtown DC, to be at practice by 6 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock, depending on my swim day, and then 6 a.m. for run groups. Yeah, it was a serious commitment, but I made it work. And I'm the better for it. But yeah, I've overcome financially. Like, I still have not bought a brand new bike. Like, I've never had a brand new bike. I've had Liz Getz gave me a bike that I used for like 4 years. And then last year I bought a used bike from another teammate, Adriana. And so I've been blessed to just get things. Susan Levitt would let me ride with her to races and sometimes would not let me pay for anything. But people sold into my life, not knowing I really couldn't afford anything. But because I had the desire and the heart, I just really I just received. And it was a great opportunity for me to show see how God will take care of my needs when I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
That's great. That's great. So, just curious, like, what's your dream bike? If you can go out and buy a new bike, what would that dream bike be?
I know it'd be turquoise.
All right.
With
turquoise, what size?
So, I've never been sized, but I think from my height, I'm 5'10".
All right.
So I think I'm
so
a 56.
I ride a 56.
So I got there right, so I'm 56.
So it's turquoise 56. What brand?
So I would have to do some research on the brand.
All right.
Like,
let's just name one. I'm just to throw something out there. Listen.
Felt.
So Felt. If you listening on this podcast at a later date, if you're watching now, get this girl a turquoise 56 size.
Like turquoise spokes, like an Insta, like all turquoise.
There you go. Look, we're out here announcing for Army 10 miler. We're doing races. Get her a Felt 56 turquoise strong. Need that. Listen.
With some tri-bars. I want to try that too. Give me some tri-bars.
Listen, I don't know. Shoot, you're all like hesitant. You're like, oh shoot. Now let me make sure I get everything in. Well, look, if we don't got no sponsorship. So if we can, if you're listening, we need that. I need a 56 too. Just saying.
And right now I'm riding on the track. And I love my track. So if you want to give me a bike, I'm here for it.
Listen, I love track. I've had tracks, I've had Felts. I'm not going to say what I have now because nobody's paying for this. But thinking about those long courses again, I know more recently you did a race in your hometown. Can you talk about that experience?
Lord. Yes, Augusta, Georgia, Ironman. That was an amazing experience. It was probably one of the races that I was so trained for. I hired a coach, and
do you still work with the coach?
Well, now triathlons are not in existence, so no.
Thanks.
I'm not paying for things that don't matter. But I love you, Zan.
There you go.
Shout out to Zan. But I was the most prepared that I had ever been, and I had only met her 2 months before my race.
Okay.
And she got me in tip-top shape. Right. When I got to Augusta, the race was great. My swim was the fastest swim. I think I swam a 32 or something. My bike, I biked in at, about 40. It was a little hillier than I thought it would be. Jesus. Yeah. I was like, my hometown was hill. But the cool thing was I got to ride by my family's property.
Wow.
And that was good to see the house where my grandmother was born in. That was priceless. Like,
that's awesome.
Got a little emotional riding by there. And it was just so good.
So what made it such a priceless moment?
It just was to be in my hometown.
Yeah.
And the race didn't go exactly the way I wanted it to, but it was the fact that I was in my hometown. Yeah. And my father Happy Father's Day, Daddy.
Yes. Sorry,
my father happened to be, after you pass it, because we had rode the bike course together, so he knew the route. He met me towards the end of the race around mile 48 or something like that. And to see him there after passing like the place where my grandmother was born and our land that we have out there, it was just emotional. Yeah. So biking, I was strong, and it was the first time I've ever felt so strong on the bike. But something happened on the bike that I didn't realize. So when I got off the bike to transition for the run, there was a huge pain in my foot.
Okay.
And I couldn't apply any pressure. So I finished the race. But I finished the race with a fractured bone. And so it wasn't the ideal time I wanted, but I finished, and I'm just so grateful for the opportunity. So hopefully I'll get to go back into Augusta in 2021.
That's awesome.
Because we got some unfinished business to handle.
That's real. So when was this race?
The race is September 29th, 2019. So just last year.
So what was that recovery like for you as you fractured your foot?
My gosh. So let me tell you, when you break something or fracture something, it's never really what the doctors say the recovery time is going to be.
Yeah.
So initially I was told you'll be able to get back into it by December.
Okay.
Well, my doctor was like, that may be January. I don't want you running on it.
And so, 1 second before you go on, did you see one doctor? Did you have to get multiple recommendations? What was that experience like?
I did, because the first doctor, which was at the urgent care, basically said it was just a sprain.
Okay.
But I was like, this doesn't feel like a sprain, so I went and got a second opinion. And then actually a third opinion.
Wow.
And that's when we discovered that it was a fracture in my fifth metatarsal.
Okay.
But you don't realize that little pinky toe got purpose.
Listen.
The pinky toe. It has purpose. She was shot on pinky toe. So look, Del Reese, that was not right because his pinky toe mattered. But real talk, I was really in a place because I was training too for Miami.
Yeah.
And it was my first time doing Miami half. I had to end up deferring the Miami half because I could not run. So I had to.
So that was the Miami half Ironman?
Miami half marathon.
Okay.
Half marathon. I had to end up deferring the race, but I ended up getting to register for the 5K.
Yeah.
So I did the Miami 5K and was able to walk the majority of it, and the doctor released me to run like every 6 or 7 minutes. So I got to, move through. My first time actually running since October of last year was Memorial Day this year. So that's when I was able to fully run full throttle a 5K without any injury or any issue. So the process was actually about a 6-month process.
Okay. All right. And were you able to bike at all, or what was that like? I
wasn't able to bike until January. In January, I was released to bike, but there was still some pressure, so I couldn't stand up on the bike. Like if I was in a spin class, I only could, spin in the seated position. So yeah, I could bike, but not really in the regular sense of getting up and standing in a spin class.
Okay.
So the bike trainer became my friend.
Hey, that works.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you've been enjoying biking as of recent.
Surprisingly, yes.
All right.
And it's biking at a with a no structure, no force.
Yeah.
Like not having to do it for racing, but just going out and enjoying cycling again.
Yeah.
And so it's been really great. My first time out was a few weeks ago. I did Capitol Crescent Trail in Washington, D.C., as well as Rock Creek Park. I just couldn't stop biking. And ended up biking 27 miles for Brianna that day. So it was great. It was a great day.
Hey, that works. So I wanted to make sure I transition into biking because I know that you came up with this idea as we just had Juneteenth, which is June 19th. It started initially in 1865. So you had this idea to have this Juneteenth Bike Ride. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I'm really big on unity. And when everything started happening with Ahmaud Arbery, then George Floyd, Breonna Taylor.
Yes.
I just was really unsettled.
The list goes on, really.
Really unsettled. And I kept saying, well, what should I do? Like, I wanted to do something. I wanted to be a part to bring people together.
Right.
And the first thing I got was a prayer walk. And we did the prayer walk actually on that Friday night. So I gave that idea and kind of shot that out. And then the next thing was biking. As triathletes, we are 1% of a whole community of people who are racing.
What do you mean by we? Just to make it really clear.
You're right. People of color are 1% of the triathlon community, which is a huge community.
Right.
And being on the announcing side, where I am probably one of the only black woman announcing, as well as an athlete, I was like, use your voice for something. Right, and so God just gave me this idea. He says, have a unity bike ride. And he showed me who to talk to. I talked to Marcus Fitz.
Yeah, that's my guy.
And then he said he was not going to be in town. And then I said, okay, cool. Next person was Michael. So
hey, I'm number 2. No, Marcus is great. So shout out to Greg, shout out to District Juneteenth.
Well, Marcus, we were talking about some other things because we were trying to get some other things situated with this movement. And so I realized he was out of town, and I just wanted to make sure, like, is this a good idea? Like, do you know of anybody else? So I didn't want to step on anyone else's toes.
Right.
And he's so ingrained in the community, whereas I'm not. I barely connect with people because of just my schedule and just not knowing who to connect with.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, step out of your comfort zone. And I'm glad that God used me to carry something out because it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, I think it was beautiful yesterday. You think it was beautiful?
I think it was great. So just talk a little bit about what it was, this beautiful experience.
So basically, we had a unity ride where we asked all of the triathlon groups in the DC area to come together, as well as some cycling groups to come together to participate in this unity ride. We did not advertise it.
Not at all.
We did not advertise it on purpose because it was considered a bike protest,
Yeah.
but in unity.
Right.
So peacefully protesting on the bike. And so we knew that if we publicize it too much, people would get a hold of it and it could have gotten shut down, and we didn't want anything to happen so we couldn't participate. And so we kept it very low key, putting it in different chat groups, Facebook groups, on our social media pages, and ended up having over 120 people register.
We had 137 people register. We had some walk-ins, we had some folks join in. So it was a great, like, not only it was a great to see how many people were interested, but it was also amazing to see how many people actually showed up. Sorry for the people that showed up on Friday and called me at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., like, hey, where you at? I'm like, I'm in bed. Like, what you mean? Like, no. But as we take a step back, can you talk about some of those clubs that were present?
Absolutely. So a special shout out to Capital Y-Tri, District Triathlon, District Multisport.
They showed up.
DC Tri. It's a lot of DC Tri.
It's a lot
of DC Tri. And then there was the group from Philly. There were some cyclists from Philadelphia that came down. The Kings
rule together. KRT Cycling team on Instagram.
And then a host of various other people. And what was so powerful, I think, is we picked up people along the way.
Right.
People saw what we were doing and was like, oh, I'm here for this. And they got in line and biked with us.
Yeah.
And we did a 6.19 mile bike ride in Washington, D.C., where we literally shut the city down.
Hold up. We made a route for 6.19. We did about 8.
The intent was there. And so along the route of the 6.19 miles, we wanted to do some things, and we wanted to hit some key locations. Mike had us go to the Capitol. We ended up going up the hill of the Capitol. That's probably my fault. But we went up there and we took a knee for 30 seconds. Mike, talk about that 30 seconds.
Yeah, so if folks think about Juneteenth, when you think about 1864, I wouldn't say that's when the slaves were actually free. But essentially that's when slaves could be free at that moment. I'm sorry, I'm blanking right now, but it wasn't until June 19th, 1865 is when in Gladden, Texas, the general, he actually told, this is 30 months later, where he told the slaves that they were free to go. The people that let's call them slaves. They were also fighting in the military, but they were also slaves. So this is 30 months later from where people in other states were told that they were able to be free. They didn't get this information until 30 months later. So we wanted to take a 30-second moment of silence to recognize those 30 months. And then after that, we did I'll let you go on.
Okay, after that we went to, we did like a tour around the National Mall, stopping by the MLK Memorial, and then taking a break at the National African American History Museum of Culture and Arts. I think I got that right.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. But we did stop there and we took a picture there, which was kind of cool to see like 100 bikers just posed right there. So that was kind of powerful. And then we finished the route. And then after that, we finished the route. And then others went on to do either 18 miles or 65 miles. And they ended at Black Lives Matter Plaza.
Yep. So taking a step back, I know when we got to when we got to the museum, that's what folks also call it, we took a picture. I just want to make sure we acknowledge the photographers because they came out and showed up. They ran around the city like crazy people. So can you talk about them a little bit?
Yes, so I know the main photographer and she orchestrated the team, but her name is D. Gallows. So if you want to follow her on social media, it's D. Gallo Photography, and we'll send this out to you if you're interested.
All right, appreciate that. I want to make sure we, giving those plugs. Everybody's trying to build something here. Especially with Perfect Timing Multisport, my intent is to really build that community. So if you're doing something, you want to work together, that's really what the intent is.
Absolutely.
All right.
So can I ask you a question?
Oh, damn. Yeah.
All right. You, for the most part, were in the front.
Yeah.
What did it feel like to lead people on this charge?
Yeah.
And let me back up before you answer that question. Mike gladly took this vision and ran with it. He was the master architect of building out this thing. And this goes to show you what partnerships does. Just because you have the vision, it doesn't mean you have to carry it out. Right. But you can release it so that others can help you. And so, Michael, thank you. Two, what did it feel like to take charge? Like, I saw you in one element where you were just leading. It was like you, and it was like we were in this swan, what is it called? Like a V shape. Yeah. And it was just so powerful. How did that feel?
Well, in the moment, it felt amazing. Right now, it doesn't feel that great because I know that I only did this because Marcus wasn't here.
You gotta bring up old news.
And I'm actually interviewing him next week, so we're definitely going to talk about this now. But nah, it was in the moment. I was just worried about what the hell is going on, where are we going? I know the route. I'm worried that I'm making sure everybody's getting there safe. But as you mentioned, once I saw that picture, I was like, wow, this is what we're trying to do, right? When we think about diversity in endurance sports, especially in triathlon, we're here to change the narrative, right? When you think about Perfect Timing Multisport, you think about G.R.I.T, District Juneteenth, KRT Cycling team, Legion. I can go on and on. Shout out to Sika, shout out to Aisha. I literally can go on. People that are in the endurance space that I can't really go on and on because it's only so few of us really doing the work, right? But it's important for us to be here and be in spaces like that. Yeah. When I saw the picture, it was just me and a bunch of people that were actually my friends that came down from Philly, from KRT, and you see a swarm of folks right behind us, and it's like, this is what we need to do, right? This is how we change the narrative. We don't say, hey, I wish something like this is going on. We're actually going out and making it happen, right? We're working with people that are having the vision, and we're taking it and running with that, even if we're only doing it because Marcus is out of town. But no, we're coming together as a community to show that we are here and we belong in this space. So yeah, I'm still processing it, really.
Me too.
I'm sorry. Last time my screen didn't go up, but I'm still processing it, to be honest. But it was such a surreal moment, and again, I definitely want to thank you for trusting me with this to carry out this vision and bringing this and helping bring this community together. Because it was an amazing thing, and I'm looking forward to the next.
It was, and listen to some of the feedback that we've gotten thus far. The most that I heard was people felt safe. Yeah. We literally were stopping traffic. Yeah. Telling people, no, you're not coming through. This is our time. And people felt safe, especially those who, of our white counterparts, who were just like, man, it felt so good, and we're here with you guys. We're here to support you all. we want to be a part of this process. And I think that is what it's going to take for us to really create the changes, people who have the influence right now, to help us gain the influence and the attraction to get a seat at the table, to help with the ideas, to be able to cultivate a new culture of what it looks like to have maybe swim caps that are a little bit larger for girls that got long hair or thick hair, or people who have dreadlocks. Like, what does it look like for bathing suits? Or let's just be clear, tri-suits for girls of us who got hips and such. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's nothing really out there that's designed for us.
Right.
And I think this is going to be a process in the long haul, and I'm committed to doing my part, whatever God is going to do through me, to do it, because it's necessary and we need it, and the time is now.
Yeah, no, that's definitely real. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Thinking about some of those things that you use, I know we talked about the budget and having that really detailed budget as a resource. What are some other resources that have been helpful as you go through this journey as an athlete? I'm going all the way back to your time as an athlete. As you mentioned the hair, you mentioned the tri-suits. Like, what are some good resources for people that look like it?
You want me to say something? No, I'm just kidding. That moment of silence was real, because if I'm sitting here thinking about what resources, I'm sitting here thinking, like, what do I need to create?
Right.
Or at least, people who need to know what to do, how to take care of their hair. Like putting conditioner in your hair while you swim helps to keep out, it helps to shield the chlorine. So that's good. You've given me something to maybe consider, but I don't know if there's anything out there that specifically talks to the Black woman triathlete as of yet. And if so, let me know, because I could be missing it. But there wasn't anything that I've seen, but maybe that's something that I could create. And I know, thinking about resources, I know RunGRL, they have a lot of great resources for Black girls run? RunGRL, they're a DC-based community. They originated out at DRC, District Running Collective, and they really they really focus on women that are Black women that do long running. So look at RunGRL on Instagram. That's definitely a great resource. But again, they're just sharing resources. When you think about triathletes, there is nobody really sharing that resource and telling that story in the space. So it's giving me some things to do.
You may have to end this early so we can figure out what's next. But thinking about that, like, what is next for you? What are you thinking about? How do we move past the Juneteenth ride, and how do we move forward? What are you thinking?
Wow, that's a loaded question, because I'm really still processing. There's so much that can come out of it. I know for sure, in hearing people talking, and again, being an organizer of an event, you're in so many different headspaces when the event is actually happening. But to hear people say, so when is the next one? I'm like, dude, we're not even finished today. Like, let us get ourselves together. But it's good to know that it's a needed opportunity. And I think you mentioned on the fly, we're very much alike in that way, where we think on the spot and then something happens and we just kind of go with it. But you mentioned yesterday, maybe this can be quarterly. And to that, I think when we talked a little bit last night, I said, why not? I think people were challenged, even on the 18-mile ride and the 65-mile ride. If you're only with the people who you are training with all the time, how are you getting better? We are better together. So if I am right now at a 15-mile pace, but I want to get to that 17-mile pace, and there's really no one in my organization that can do that, how do I get to the next level? And maybe we come together quarterly and have different pace groups, and we're just riding together to challenge each other to get better. Now we know each other, so we can have camaraderie at triathlons, because we may need a room with them, to be resourceful. So it's like, the more you can build relationships, I think it's only going to be beneficial for everyone in the long run. Especially when you're talking about going out of the country to do races. Like, we can take a whole caravan out to what's a good race? In Rome. and do a race, and we have a collective. So anything can happen as a result of just building the relationships on the ground level.
Yeah. And as I think about that, this is definitely the perfect time. That's how I came up with this name, perfect time. Like whatever space that we're in, whatever moment that we're in, it's the perfect time to be wherever you are in your life. So it's definitely the perfect time to figure out how we can bring that community together. And as I think about that, I was actually talking to Graham yesterday. Do you know that Graham is the co-owner with Jay. So shout out to Jay, shout out to Graham at Urban Athletic Club on 7th and N between 7th and 9th Street. They let us come use their space.
Thank you.
They not only let us come together and use their space beforehand, but we had some folks, again, KRT, and then some other folks that were coming from out of town. They let them use their shower afterwards. Again, making sure that they maintained that social distancing, making sure only a few people were allowed in the space at a time, making sure people had their masks, but they opened their doors and they created a space that was really welcoming for everybody in the community to come to. So again, thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing what happens next. I was actually talking to Graham and he wants to get some recurring rides. So I'll be leading some group rides out of Urban Athletic Club. So keep on the lookout for that. Follow on Perfect Timing Multisport Urban Athletic Club. We can get into that a little bit more. But so just thinking about you as an athlete though, what's next for you? As I know we're in COVID times, right? But what's next for you? How are you keeping yourself motivated without the racing, without the goals?
So what's interesting is 2020 was supposed to be a big race for me. It was the first time in my whole triathlon career that I had actually set up a race schedule. Okay. Like I've never done it before. It was just like, oh, can I afford this race? Yeah. And I would just go for it. But this year I had like over 10 races. Actually, I had 20 total races I was going to do this year, whether it was running, whether it was going to be my first Grand Fondo. Like I was really stretching myself in this year. And what it's caused me to do is to reset. And so this year, I'm really just working on my health, working on getting to be the best me, doing very short distances, sustainable. I'm working with a nutritionist, shout out to fitness, working with her as well as working with her. She's just been really helpful in resetting my body. So where now when I'm doing activities, like I haven't really done a bike ride, but was able to do sprints back and forth to stop traffic for people. And I was like, where did I get this energy from? And it was all about resetting my body, resetting my eating habits. So this year for me is about resetting, because next year I would like to do some big races. And so it's about redoing my foundation. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm not doing any stressful rides. Everything is about de-stressing my body and really focusing on restoration. Okay.
So how are you keeping yourself motivated to make sure you're doing that? Especially in times of COVID, coronavirus, how are you keeping yourself motivated?
So I'm keeping myself motivated because I have really good accountability. And checking in with Inez each week makes me accountable. And I have friends who keep me accountable. Like I check in with my tri coach, Zan, to keep me accountable, to make sure that I'm doing certain things. But most importantly, it's my desire. And because I want to do it, I'm doing it. Like to work out, I look at my little workout schedule through Strava and Apple. Strava and my watches, and I see that I've only missed working out maybe 5 times during COVID. I've done something for 30 minutes at minimum each day, whether it's stretching, whether it's foam rolling. As I crack my back, foam rolling, I've done something because I'm important to me. And when I made myself a priority, that's when things started to shift for me, because it's so easy to do things for other people and to go out and work hard, but I needed to make myself a priority, so that's what keeps me accountable as well.
I love it. So I know we're coming up here on an hour. I want to make sure I leave some time for folks that are not only listening and watching through Perfect Timing Multisport on Instagram, but also watching through Michanda. What's your Instagram handle?
Michanda Shines.
On Michanda Shines. So If you have questions, now's the time. If you're listening later, you've got the Instagram handles. So go ahead, Daniela, our executive producer. Feel free to let us know some questions.
So I'm not seeing any questions. If questions are being sent, they need to be sent directly in the chat. But I do have a question for Michanda. You got very emotional when you were talking about your Augusta ride through the neighborhood where your family is. And I want to know a little bit more about, one, where that emotion is coming from, but what do you notice that's different from other courses to ride through the neighborhood where you and your family have been a part of?
Oh, man. Wow. I think it's because I love my family, and I don't get to see them that often because I'm several miles away. I'm on purpose. Like, I moved to DC 10 years ago, not knowing what God had in store for me, but just literally sending me here on faith. Yeah. And as a result, I was set here away from my family to get some important things that I needed to carry on the journey for my life. And it was emotional for me to do Augusta because how can I do races in all these other cities and not race in my own hometown? Yeah. Where I was born and reared from K to high school. Like, I embody Augusta, and I'm from a small town just with a big city mentality, but I love my town. My family thinks I'm shady. They're like, you don't even love us no more. But I do. It's just that I have a different purpose, and I had to know that I had to separate from my family to go for the higher calling, because ultimately it will restore everything that we have said. And so it was emotional because I love my grandmother, and my grandmother, she died when I was up here in DC, and so she was my girl. Yeah. And to run by that house where we used to play outside in the fields and on the land where all her 9 siblings grew up was just powerful for me. And it was just like, man, this is my history. This is who I am. This is who I embody. And it was just beautiful to see that and to be able to experience it. I didn't feel that way when me and my dad drove, but riding past it when I was tired, I got some strength from them fields and was like, I can do this. And so that was, it was just powerful to be back in my hometown. And my parents didn't understand what triathlons triathlons were. And when they saw me, they were like, wow, you do hard stuff.
Oh yeah.
They never understood it. And I think their perception of me changed in that moment, my parents, because they were able to see me do something that was uncommon to them. And this race has been in Augusta for almost 12 years. I think this was the 12th year last year. Yeah. So it was just a beautiful thing, because now they're like, so are you biking? And my dad's like, so how's your foot? Okay, are you doing this? Because he bikes, he still bikes. He's the one who got me into biking. Awesome. And he said, his thing is, once you fail, you never got back on a bike again. That's not true, because I'm back on a bike now. And I'm clipped in, Dad. I'm clipped in. Hey.
I will have to add that it's true that when you're in the process of doing long course, between the fatigue, the excitement, and feeling prepared, it's true that feelings are in a very unique place. Yeah. So I can understand the emotion coming through. At the same time, we're getting some feedback. Brianna says she's ready to get on a road trip to travel to race. And she says that you killed it in Augusta, which I believe because I inadvertently FaceTimed you while you're in the process of racing, thanks to Brianna. And lastly,
thank you, Brianna. Let me tell you, Brianna was the best Sherpa ever, right? I love Brianna. So my parents would not have known what to have done, but she was able to keep them on the text chain. I look back at it, okay, this is where she is. This is what you need to do. This is where you need to be. So Brianna, thank you for being a good friend. And the fact that she was in school, well, she was on her residency. Is it called residency?
I believe so.
Yeah. Okay, she was on her residency, drove from North Carolina to come support me. Yo, that's priceless.
Yeah, she's amazing. She was actually supposed to be out there for the speed project with us. So hopefully, since they kept pushing it back, she can still make it.
Dr. Brianna.
I'm sorry.
Dr. Hurt.
My bad.
She said she got you. And then we do have a question from Coach Fitz from Grit.
Oh, Coach Fitz!
Yes, Coach
Don't
Fitz.
be shady.
Coach Fitz is in the house. Coach Fitz is in the house, and he does have a question for the both of you.
Right.
So I'm going to let you both look at each other and decide who wants to answer first, but the question says, what does representation in multisports look like for you both?
Yeah. Oh.
Take a deep breath. Sit with it for a moment, because that's a question.
You gotta be all deep. You always gotta go deep, Marcus.
Man, you could have saved this question for next week while you were on. But nah, you're going to take it first?
No, you go. You're the man. I'm a sit.
Representation, not only in multisport, but being comfortable, having a community and feeling comfortable in a space with people that look like me, have experiences like me, and people that I can be comfortable around. And the reason I say that, sometimes I have to make sure I dress a certain way if I'm going into spaces. Like many folks know, I coach for DC Tri Club's new triathlete program. So when I go and meet people at bike stores, I remember a time there was the bike store workers, they didn't want to talk to me, and then I was like, hey, I coach this program now. They're like, oh, now you want to talk, but when you see me with my sweatpants, my jeans, and my hoodie on, you don't got nothing to say. So that's what me going in any space and making sure I can be comfortable as the person that I am, making sure I can listen to the music that I want to and not feeling that judgment when I'm at a race, and not feeling those crazy looks because the space is diverse. People know that they can expect somebody that looks like me. When I'm on a bike course and I'm not getting almost ran over by a car because I'm a black man in the middle of Pennsylvania, that's what diversity and multi-sport looks like. Again, we in USA Triathlon, we are only 1% of the space, but as we grow and get allowed, or as we have a more diverse space, people are going to be comfortable seeing us. So we're not going to have these experiences that I know I personally had, that I personally don't talk about, but they happen. So we'd love to hear from you.
And when you talked about being almost ran over by a car, I had a similar experience on my first long course race where, I was driving, well, not driving, but driving my bike. And at the time, but still, I'm not the best bike handler. I wasn't at the time. And, to have people come up on me with a Confederate flag,
right,
saying all kind of vulgar things at me just made me think, like, what if there was someone else who understood what was happening out here in these races on these backwood roads?
Thanks.
What would they do? And so what does representation look like for me is looking like there's diversity at the top.
Yeah.
It's diversity in the office. They have set up summits of people that they can talk to about what is it that you need. Find out what the community, whether it's biopic, Black, Indigenous people of color, find out what it is that we need to feel included, and then put some action items in set to make them happen. Like, we need people of color at the table,
right,
and making decisions, and then getting people of color on the microphones to not be playing music that's just one-sided. Like, to go to a race and you hear a whole bunch of country music is like, I don't even feel excited to race, but I got to because I need to be there. But to have people who can be multicultural, and that's going to have conversations of what you need.
Michanda, I do have a question for you, because before we recorded all of this in our live with all of you, there was something that you said that really stuck out to me as a result of experiences that I myself have had on the course, which was what would happen if these courses were laid out in places where people of color were often seen, and these were neighborhoods where we were also in. So can you talk a little bit about that comment? Because I think that threads in directly into what we're talking about.
Yeah, so a lot of times the races are held in very remote parts of, really?
I ain't got the...
In remote parts of the country. And so you got country back roads where where a lot of people of color just aren't there. So they're in more metropolitan cities, and I'm presuming that it's hard to get permits to block city roads off. So it's easier to do them on the long country roads because it's easier to let people go, and we're running with the cars and we just have to stay in a single file line. It's easier for police to kind of monitor certain crossroads. But I think it would be, if in a perfect world we were to have them in races that were less remote, I think it would be a more culturally enjoyable experience. And I think it will make me, let me speak for me, feel a little bit more comfortable to see more people who can support me as I'm riding on that course on the road, and I can hear people cheering for me. So I think that will make it better. But again, lakes are not in places where Black people are, you know? So we have to go where the people are. But maybe, just maybe, what we can do is start having programs in these remote cities to bring Black people in so that they can know what a triathlon is. I didn't learn what a triathlon was until 2010. My first time hearing about what a triathlon was, and didn't really fully understand it until 2014. So we have to get the conversation started so that people in the communities will know. Like 2 HBCUs have just started triathlon teams for women. Shout out to, I think, Delaware State and Hampton. So the word is getting out. Florida A&M, where you at? Florida A&M, that's my school. But we had a swim team. So we have to get there when we get there, but the time is now to just make the introductions, even if it's one person or if it's two people. I think we need to just start by investing in the communities.
There you go. Now, I'm all here for it. And again, as you say that, again, I want to shout out not only myself, Perfect Timing Multisport, but shout out to G.R.I.T. I know Marcus, he's working on a lot of great things so we can make sure we create spaces for people, for athletes, especially athletes of color, to understand what the sport is. We're really working to make it a competitive team in that space. Gosh, I want to go on, but it's really hard. like DC is really, really spoiled because they have me and Marcus here. I know that. But so as we wrap up, if you have any more questions, well, Danny, do we have any more questions on the live feed?
No questions have popped up yet, so we can wrap up. And any questions can go into the inbox. We're happy to get back to y'all.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you guys for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in. If you're tuning in at a later date, thank you for listening. Again, follow us on Perfect Timing Multisport. You can also subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, working to get on Apple. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the link in my bio. You can sign up for the free newsletter to get tips. And then ways to connect with Michanda.
And you can connect with me on social media, on all social media platforms at Michanda Shines. That's Michanda Shines, Shines. Or you can send me an email at hello@michanda.com.
Cool. All right. Well, that's all we got for today. Make sure you guys tune in next week. As I mentioned, we're going to have Marcus Fitz on. And I want to talk more about how I became second. No, I'm just kidding. No, we're going to have Marcus Fitz on. So make sure you tune in next week, and we'll be back for another episode of Perfect Timing Multisport. All right. Peace, y'all. Bye.